All right. Hello, everybody. Hello, Boston, Rod. Hello, Nito in Singapore. Hello, an extraordinary woman. Our guest today is Sonu Basin. How are you guys? Good to see you all again. Well, Nito, I know before we get to our guest, which is an extraordinary woman, and we have so much to talk about. I know, Nito, you're coming to Kiev. You're on the way to airport right after this. So tell me what you're feeling right now. What's your expectations for Kiev?
She's
For one,
drinking.
this is the first time that I am coming to Ukraine. This is my first visit. So, and also, yes, I'm going to be meeting so many new people. And though Horasis is not new to me, I've been going to Horasis meets, the Asia and the India meet for the last 10 years. But yeah, the China meet is going to be for the first time. So it's going to be a different experience. And yeah, a lot more other businesses to see what's happening in that part of the world.
Well, again, it's going to be a great training for you before the India meeting in Ukraine. So you'll be able to speak to your counterparts of what to expect.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is almost like a recce trip.
That's right. Well, our co-host, Mr. Robertson, just visited Israel, and already personally he told me about an amazing story. Rod, give us a quick rundown on your trip. What did you do? What did you see? Who did you meet?
Well, I almost got killed 3 times by the Coptic Christians, by the Hasidic Jews, and by the extreme Muslims. But outside of that, I had a great time.
As always, wherever you go, the trouble finds you. So
Thank you.
this is why I love traveling with you. When we 3 of us will be together, I'll tell you the stories. We and Rod will tell you the stories. But let's get to our guest. Suna, thank you.
It's good to see you here on the show, which means all's well.
Well, nothing is ever wrong with Rod. Trust me. People who are trying to kill him will usually get in trouble. But let's get to our guest. Suna, great to see you. Great to have you on the show. I know we've spoken before, and I welcome you to our fledgling new show, Global Transformation. We talk about, obviously, issues that will be transforming this world. And today is going to be a fascinating show, which will focus on family business, the succession in families, the dynamics within families, businesses, as well as obviously psychology of it all. But let me start with your background because it's fascinating. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get to the point where you just do whatever you like to do and you enjoy your life?
So Henry, first, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here in conversation with you and Rod and Neetu in different parts of the world. And this is what technology does to all of us, that it keeps us connected. So to give you a little bit about my background, I've spent about 30 years in the corporate world. Half of that I spent as a banker. And I was among the first few private bankers in India. And the year was 2000, when corporate salaries were not as high as they are today. Employee stock options were not common at all. And as private bankers, the only people who had the true blue-blooded private banking kind of money were businessmen. But we were not talking of the very large businessmen, the names like the Tatas, the Ambanis, the Birlas. We were looking at a businessman in the small and medium enterprises sector. We call them SMEs in India.
Sure.
And because dealing with their personal money, it gave me a huge insight into how their personal relationships actually affected their investment decisions. Because this wasn't the corporate money, it was their personal money. And therefore, if a father did not like his son, he was cut off from the investments. Then when I became a larger banker, the SMEs and the family businesses continue to be part of my focus. And after about 28, 29 years of working, I decided that I needed to do something of my own. And I set up my platform, which is called FAB, Families and Business. And we work with family businesses and we help them be aware of issues within their family that they need to address if they want to build multi-generational businesses. Rod, Henry, and Neetu, you would know as well, I guess, some of our viewers, that 90% of world commerce is in the hands of family-owned businesses. But 70% of them last only one generation. And it is a high drop-off. And the reason for this has nothing to do with business, really. It has everything to do with family dynamics. But unfortunately, nobody talks to these people. Nobody talks to businessmen about relationships and dynamics with family. And family businesses perpetuate, which is bad for the economy, no matter which country they're in. So through my platform, I wish to highlight issues that need to be at least talked about so that family businesses perpetuate. So that's the brief background that I do. I bring out a magazine, which is called Families in Business. I write books. I teach at business schools.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sona. It's just our connection got a little cut off, but hopefully it'll come back. But Rod, obviously you spend a great deal of time working with many, with many families. Oh, yeah,
Sorry, I
Sona's
lost
back.
you for a bit. Yeah, I lost you for a bit.
No, it's okay. We're moving on because I want to thank you very much for giving us the background. It's fascinating. But before we get to family, I wanted to ask Rod, because Rod, I know you work with a lot of family offices that manage family money. What are your thoughts? Obviously, family business and the statistics that only one generation survives is a very gray one. What's your experience with family businesses and family offices?
It's been a really interesting metamorphosis over the last 2 decades, as there was
Rod, don't have
just
to
a
use the
short.
big words, please. I mean, I remember English is not my first language. Metamorphosis and all that stuff. So
That was from Kafka. But so here in the States, the metamorphosis of the families, where there was probably 20 years ago 20, 30 billionaire families who were loosely investing monies. Now we have over 800 families with 500 million or more that have hired professional help. And everyone is really swinging toward working with them instead of the private equity group, who has to answer to shareholders. They have a rigid guideline what to do. You can go to a private equity group where, like for now, we're looking for funding for these fascinating sports companies. What do? We go to the 50 owners of the American football, American baseball, American basketball, and each one of them has $1 billion fund that they can deploy into different businesses. So, and they don't have any rules. A lot of them, as Suna will tell you, they have sons and daughters who they have to teach and sculpt so that they can learn how to deal with all this money. Because it may sound like a joke to us mere mortals, but these wealthy families have to have grown up with these privileged sons and daughters, and you have to get them so that they feel their own worth and they know how to deal with this great burden of money that they have. And for us that want them to spend their money, we have to psychologically understand how to approach them. What are their hot buttons? Not to fawn over them, but to develop a peer relationship with them so they value our services and that they'll look at a wide range of deals. So it's a fascinating thing that's evolved. The family offices are getting bigger and bigger. The private equity groups, I remember when there was 300, it went to 5,000. Now they're down to 3,000. But if you looked at the net value, I would say the family offices in the United States, their accumulated wealth is on par with the private equity groups.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, I also struggled tremendously with my own kids, because I grew up with nothing, and when I acquired some assets, one of the challenges I had with my kids, I wanted to give them everything, but I also wanted them to appreciate what they have, versus just getting a silver spoon. And Neetu, back to you now. I wanted to ask you what Rod had said. Obviously, Rod talked about the financial component of family businesses and setting up a family offices, and obviously investing freely. What about the dynamics? I know you know a lot of billionaire families. What do you see the dynamics are between father and son, father and daughter, maybe the third generation already?
I think this father and son concept, whether it's business or thing, it's always the problem when it comes to when the father wants to treat the son as his second chance in life. So that's where that's where
I'm doing with my son in soccer. Yes. So-
and needless to say that I mean I think sort of because of the new ideas coming in with the new generation, there's bound to be a disagreement, and it's how well the disagreement is really handled is I think what Sonu would be talking about in her magazines as to how to deal with these challenges in terms of innovations. In fact, I've seen a lot of the the very, very big family businesses, they are now their kids are now actually becoming entrepreneurs in their own right,
and they want to
that
prove
is something
themselves
that
on their own right.
yeah, they are. I mean, they it's not necessarily that they will toe the line and they will follow the family business, and they are now doing their own. In fact, it'd be very interesting to know why this trend has suddenly caught up from Sonu.
Well, absolutely, soon, and that's why I want to refer from my own experience. When I took, my parents a long time ago asked me to take over the business, and at some point I had to come to my mom because she was constantly interfering with my innovation policies. And I said, "Mom, if you're not going to change, I'll have to fire you." And how do you handle that? So the idea behind this, and Rod knows my mom, and soon I want to come back to you. And obviously, what do you see? What's the motivation that you have, and what are you attempting to change?
So, there are questions in all of this, but let's start by by going back to something that Rod said about teaching the value of money to the next generation. Kids of family business owners are privileged. They have grown up with wealth. They take wealth for granted. And the word that sometimes is used is called affluenza, where it's
Affluenza, I love that.
affluenza, and it is
Rod, this is a very smart word, by the way.
So
You're going to be on a steep learning curve, Rod.
Yep. And so it's almost like a disease, because when there's no value for money, there is no value for work. A number of family business owners that I have spoken with, their number one concern is how to get my children, whether it's sons or daughters, look at money and see the value. And to me, it all goes back to the way that they have been brought up. It goes back to family values, which play a very important role, not only in a family, but definitely in a family business. And I don't know about in your countries, but in India, people who acquire wealth in the first generation don't want their children to go through the pain and the problems that they went through. And
Right.
therefore, they compensate them with money. And the messaging them through their childhood is, son or daughter, please do not worry. Your father has enough money and you don't have to worry. And hearing this for 18 or 20 years, the child actually starts to believe it. And then the father is surprised when the child says, Dad, I don't want to work because you have enough money. I don't want to join your business. So it actually goes back to early messaging. And the people and the family business owners who have managed to get their next generation into the business, working hard, have given them the right message from early childhood, discussing business on the dining table, taking them to the offices, taking them to the factories, telling them that no matter what they do, no matter where they work, ultimately they have to come back and join the family business. So it's not as difficult as people make it out.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead, Rod.
So an interesting question, I think, is, do you think there's a different cultural split between like fathers and sons and daughters in India and wealthy Asians and how it's an American, or do you think it's a universal issue and problem with their own cultural idiosyncrasies?
Smart word again. Thank you, Rod.
Yes. So yes, culture may differ from country to country. So for example, in India, the culture is that the son is not going to raise his voice or is not going to object or to criticize his father or question a decision that's taken by the father. Well, in America, it may be a more open culture. So while cultures may differ, the problem of the next generation taking money for granted, I think, cuts across cultures. I think it's a behavioral issue and not a cultural issue. So I don't know if that's what you got.
Sudo,
Yes.
I 100% agree with you, because when I made the decision with my own kids, what I realized is I do want to give them everything, but more importantly than anything, and I'm very proud of my kids. My son is 19 now. My daughter is 18, almost 18. And what I have done is, I instilled the work ethics. I think from early on, literally from picking up your diaper and throwing it into the garbage, I would have my kids do those things. I would drag them into doing the volunteer work. I would drag them into the office and do the dirty work, like washing floors, what the cleaning lady does. We had a babysitter, and I would have them wash the dishes after everybody, including the babysitter, in order for them not to feel entitled versus the person who was working, helping around the house. So Neetu, from the experience, we're going to come back to the magazine, because that's a fascinating tool, and we want to talk about Rod, the business model that Sun is pursuing. But Neetu, I wanted to address for you, obviously, the family dynamics are critical in a family business succession, and obviously one of the things I have encountered, my kids, some of them wanted to be part of what I'm doing, some of them not. I'm talking to them about now. My son is studying communication. I said, "Hey, do you want to get involved with help us with the show?" "Oh, I'm playing soccer right now. I'm doing my thing." And so you got to give them space as well. So what I'm talking about, how do you manage that, being, getting them involved in your business and also giving them space and keeping them accountable for either decision?
It is quite strange that, the children, probably how you grew up or I grew up or whatever, now the kids grew up with the basics all set for themselves. I mean, obviously, we're talking about business leaders and stuff. I mean, they all grew up with seeing probably a 52-inch television all the time and all of it. And suddenly, when they've grown up, and it's not also fair that at the end of, when you find that they're going out of line, to say, "Hey, aren't you appreciating the fact that you have this?" I mean, to be honest, the kid grew up with it when it was a baby. But having said that, I somehow feel it is not fair that when you have the family business, I do agree that there has to be a second generation taking it forward. But it's almost like you're making the choices for the child and leaving the child with no passion to pursue what they want. And I feel that is most of the time is what creates huge cracks in the businesses, is because that is not the passion.
Right. And Sunu, this is a perfect segue into understanding, obviously, any family has its problems. And obviously what Neetu said, and Rod knows this extremely well, in order to achieve something, you got to be very passionate about it. You got to live it 24/7. And obviously, a lot of families don't see the dynamic in the next generation where the father works 89 hours a week to get done what he needs to get done. And the problem is, what happens in terms of when the cracks are becoming much wider and the son doesn't want to pursue what father had built? How do you family deals with that?
The common thing that the father says is, "Son, I've built all of this for you. And if you're not interested, what am I going to do with it?" And the son turns around and said, "Sorry, Dad, you didn't build this business for me. You built it for yourself because it's your passion." So the problem arises when the fathers fail to see that ownership does not necessarily have to mean managing the business. If the son is really not interested in the business, there are many options available to the father. Get in external talent, get in people from outside to come and manage the business. The son can continue to be the owner, because to follow his passion, the money will need to come from the business, and therefore the business will need to be run well. And if the son is not interested in running the business well, then well, they need to go out and find the best guy in the whole wide world to come and run their business for them and compensate them. It is in everybody's interest to keep the business running. The problem arises when the father says, son, it is you who have to take this business. And I agree with Neetu that if the passion is not there, if the son really doesn't want to follow the father's business, the father does need to look at the alternatives.
Well, if I could jump in a little bit, I would say that we probably have a very few billionaires or family office people watching the show, and we have thousands of people that are ambitious young people that are trying to figure out, and all of us weep no tears for these wealthy people and their issues of how they're going to spend their time. So if we could pivot the discussion a little bit to how does normal citizens or people's young entrepreneurs or business people, how do they get after these family offices' money, and how do they penetrate in there, and how do they get their ideas in front of them so that they too can create wealth? I think that's really what our listeners want.
So soon as you realize, Rod is our segue guy, so this is his job on the show, and now we're getting into real money, and into real money situation. The key is obviously it's critical for, in my opinion, for the parents who created original wealth, is to give opportunity for their kids. Is to go and explore and go on and find that passion. So what do you recommend to those families? As Rod just pointed out, what do they need to do if they can have access to capital the parents created? You know, how do they approach that? How do they build their own business and passion about?
So I thought that there were two questions in this. One was, how do youngsters get access to the money that is lying with family offices? Correct. And get in their ideas? And two is, how do the inheritors actually use the family money and follow their passion? So let me talk about the first question to start with. You know, family offices are actually looking for good business ideas, because look at it, if you have billions of dollars or millions of dollars as investable funds, and you have only a limited number of companies in the stock market, real estate is different, business is something that you understand, then you're looking for new businesses to invest in. The way that I have seen youngsters get money is by making their passion and their business plan come together in a way where the person takes a call on not only the business plan, but also the person. So therefore, if family offices are looking for, if youngsters are looking for family offices, I don't think getting money in today's day and age is a problem. I think presenting the right idea and building confidence in oneself, that is more difficult. There's too much of money in search of too few good ideas and too few good people. Now, the second part of the question is, how do the inheritors get access to the money and use it to build their passion? That is far simpler, because if it is an extended family, I'm sure that there's a family charter, or they sit around the dining table and they work out what is the part of wealth that can be unlocked and given to the Gen Next for them to follow their passion. What is the business model that they're following? Does the father really want to be involved in it? The father's there to give advice. And then again, it is up to the inheritor to put together the business plan and go out and get the business done. In the book that I've written, there's this large family business, a business family. Their son came back after studying in the US and UK and did not want to join the family business. The family actually gave him money to set up a completely new line of business, which later merged into the main business and today contributes more than 20% of the bottom line. So wow. It's a win-win situation.
So they basically can start their own show and then integrate into family trust or family business. So, Rod, right? Yeah, Rod, quick question to you. How does the young people approach and pitch the family offices you described earlier? Obviously, they're not as public as private equity companies. How do they go about getting to those decision makers at family offices?
Well, our esteemed guest, I think, just outlined the way to go. It's like you're hunting. If you're hunting for money, it's a jungle out there. You survey your prey. If it's a big family office, what do the people over, the principals of the office, the senior, what is their mantra? What do they believe in? Where can and how can you grab their attention, not just with your business plan, but with your personality to show them that you're a like and kind-spirited person that believes in what they believe in. So you really, there's a plurality. There's so many of these family offices out there. You can segment them. If you're going out for a hunt, and if it's for technology, my God, there's going to be 200. If there's sports, there'll be 80. If there's health and fitness or health and welfare, there could be 40. How can you align your interests with them? And just don't send an email. Just don't send a business plan with a nice cover letter. Go do something special. Find something, do
To
something.
stand out.
You have to get yourself away from the thundering herd. You want to be coming in on the side where you're separated, where they'll notice you. But just, and excuse my language, but just don't kiss ass. I mean, these people, as soon as you start fawning on them and acting like they're such a high level, maybe that works for certain people, but the smartest people discount people that suck up to them. And it's, you got to try to talk to them with a high level of respect, but you don't treat them like they came down from Mount Olympus because their father or they have a lot of money. And so treat them normal people, find out what they like, and drive, and do something different to grab their attention.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Rod. So, Nito, we obviously,
Can I
you
just add
introduced me. I'm sorry, who was saying Nito? Sooner, you.
No, Sonu, can I just add a couple of points to what Rod said?
Rod, are you taking
You know-
selfies?
I'm going to sue you later, Henry, so I'm just taking information.
Sorry, go ahead, Sunu.
So, the people who have family offices are very smart people because they're large, they run large businesses. And one thing about family business owners is that they know their people. They may take a little bit of while, but once they know which is a good guy versus a bad guy, putting it in very simplistic terms, they will back the good guy. So if you look at any successful family businesses which is family run, you will find old loyalists still there. And therefore, they do recognize the value of people. And the entrepreneurs looking for family office money need to give them the comfort, need to build a bit of rapport, need to go and, to use a word, need to go and sell themselves. Without kissing ass, they need to sell
Right.
themselves, because
What?
it's not going to be given only for the product, but it's also going to be given taking a call on the person.
So, as Rod said, I mean, I would not be kissing ass, but I would be offering to become a stepson or something. But so, Nitu, we obviously, you introduced us in Sunu, and we introduced us to Family and Business magazine. So I want to start with you before we get to the business of the magazine. I wanted to ask you your point of view on the magazine, Nitu.
I think since this is what I know of the magazine, it's the only standalone magazine which addresses this issue. And to be honest, I think people shy away from talking about this issue because they take their businesses to be very personal. They want to guard their problems and not talk about it in public because it becomes more of a, a statement. Right? And nobody, that problem is happening in the family business, whereas they don't talk about it as happening in a corporate office. So to have a magazine like this where the family business can actually come and they do have a platform to speak on, they do have a platform where they can voice their concerns, I think we should be taking this magazine to various countries, because, as Sonu said, that the culture may be different, but the problems in the business families remains pretty much the same. Maybe, I mean, they differ a little bit culturally in terms of how America might deal with it, where their kids normally go out at the age of 16, 17, they're living independently, whereas in India, even when you are a grandfather, you're still probably living with a father. So, yeah, so I think it'll be a good idea where we can get different. And I think, Sonu, if I'm not mistaken, you do have writers from all over the world writing into you on the various businesses of the countries.
What is important is that there are conversations that are started around issues that are not business, but issues that affect the business. Because these are such core issues, people are very, very loath to talk about it. But and I have seen it in seminars, I have seen it at public forums, that when the conversations start, people do come out and they share the most amazing details themselves.
Yes. If you allow them
that
to
people
speak, they will share.
They will share. And also the fact that once people start speaking, they realize that they're not the only ones. So if I'm a family business
Exactly.
owner and I'm wrong with my son, I feel there's something wrong with my son or there's something wrong with me. But when I'm sitting in with people or I'm reading articles and I find that this happens to 80% of family business owners around the world, suddenly I feel very light. A burden is lifted off me, because there's nothing wrong with me, there's nothing wrong with my son. It's a generic problem. And once you separate the emotion from the problem, these are all smart business people. They wouldn't be, earning these loads of money if they were not smart business people. Once they're able to remove the emotion from the problem, solutions are found. So through the magazine, what I'm trying to start these conversations. And yes, we have people writing in now and saying they want to write about issues. And we have people from Australia, from Philippines, from Singapore, from UK, from Germany, from Switzerland, from America. We don't have anybody from Ukraine yet, Henry. So I'm looking
Yes.
for somebody from Ukraine to start writing for us.
I got a hint. Yes, I got that hint, and I'm Rod is my editor-in-chief of my English, and I have people. So, but at the same time, I want to come back sooner and start talking about. And it's fascinating what you talked about. Same, as you drawing an analogy. I would be drawing. Maybe it's not a very good analogy, but Alcoholic Anonymous. When you're not feeling alone, right? When you're an alcoholic, when you have a group that says, "Hey, I'm an alcoholic," same thing applies here. It's just obviously much subject, that allows us related to the business and family dynamics. But I want to come back to the business of magazine itself. Obviously, this has a potential to be, as we referred to earlier, this is a global issue. Family businesses are driving economies. So it's obviously a critical dynamic that nobody really pays attention to, that allows the business to grow around the world. So let's talk about the magazine right now. I know, talk about the numbers in terms of, I know you have printed version, you have an electronic version, and I talk about the business side of it. What is the distribution now and so on? The business model as well.
So, the good thing about technology is that it allows distribution to be around the world and at very, very low cost. So in the soft format, it reaches, I think, more than 2 million people around the world every year. And we also have a printed quarterly edition for people who want their hard copies. And, again, technology enables me to send files around the world to people who want to print it in their countries. This is not a priced magazine. My business model is not to earn through subscription. My business model is completely different. And therefore, I am very happy if I get an email from America to say, I saw this magazine, I want to write for it. And when he writes for it, he says, I want, 1,000 copies. And I tell them that, if I print it and courier it to you, it's going to cost you a lot. So why don't I just send you the file and you print as many copies as you want? So the idea behind the magazine is to disseminate knowledge, to propagate families and business, and to get more and more people start these conversations. And the
So,
business model is different. The business model is to do events, on-ground events, and get people to come together for real-time events.
Nito, I know it's late in Singapore. Keep drinking wine. So it's okay. So Rod is taking
I just
selfies. So
wanted
the
to-
show is off the rails already. So we can just go ahead. But Rod, I wanted to come back and sooner. I just wanted to ask you.
Just 1 second. I
Sure.
wanted to, Henry, if you let me hop in here, I just wanted to hear a little more from Sonu in terms of her partnership with Bloomberg. I understand that they've started doing, when she talked about events, there's a tie-up which she has with Bloomberg, and that is a very, very interesting one, which I'd like
Please.
to hear more
Yes.
about.
Yeah.
Sonu, go
So
ahead.
the title of my book is The Inheritors. And Bloomberg and I are partnering to do the Inheritor series of events. And one part of the events are on-ground events where I'm in conversation with some family business owners, and we have an invited audience of about 50 or 60 patriarchs, inheritors, and some family office people. And the other part of the series are podcasts, because Bloomberg says that voice is going to be huge in the next 3 to 4 years. So we've started recording for podcasts, and as soon as I get the links, I'm going to share it with all of you. And these are half-hour, 40-minute conversations, one-on-one conversations. So I'm in conversation with an individual, and we have a free-flowing conversation about issues of family businesses in the family. And I find that these conversations are very interesting, and Bloomberg
Yes,
is
they're
very happy
fascinating.
to partner, and very happy, and I'm sure they're going to be happy if we want to take it around the world.
So Rod, Sunu, I wanted to ask before we need to ask that question. If Rod wanted to bring this to America, how would he go about it? Obviously Rod works in the M&A business, in private equity. He's very familiar with that space. Family offices that exactly your target audience. How would he go around setting up this operation in the United States?
Are you asking me or Neetu?
No, I'm asking you.
Oh, me. Oh, I see.
And then I would like Rod to respond to that, please.
So, Rod, I do know that in America, there is a magazine called the Family Business Magazine, and they do a lot of events. They do webinars. They do on-ground. However, in America, there's a large diaspora of Indians. And I don't have the numbers, but I think there must be about 20 million, if I'm not mistaken. I don't hold me to these numbers. It's a huge diaspora, and a large percent of them are business owners. They run from small to medium to large businesses. Now, culture plays a very important part in family businesses. And therefore, if I look at my magazine and my venture, I talk to largely the diaspora of Indians, the persons of Indian origin, not necessarily NRIs, because the culture actually is stronger in people who are away from India than people who are in India. And I see a huge opportunity in America, because I really do not think there is any magazine that addresses issues of the Indian family culture and especially if those business families are in businesses. I mean, for example, how to deal with prenups. It's a completely alien concept in India. And even in America, if you talk to a person who's our age about prenups, I think they're going to throw a fit. But it's becoming how do you
it's becoming a regular thing. So
yeah,
Rod,
it's
how would you
becoming a
go?
regular thing.
Rod, how would you go about doing something with a magazine? How do you see this magazine in America, if at all? Would it be a great tool for you?
The people, the comment of the people of Indian origin in the United States is a huge comment, and I believe that there's a big market, international market, not just of people from India, but other people who have come here and actually always think they're going to go home, but they ended up adopting the American lifestyle and the American dream. And but they feel guilt about not being at home, but they want to appease home and here. So I think there's a huge marketplace for what you're doing overseas here in the United States. For instance, there's one group I'm involved with is Advantage Media Group, and they are tied into Forbes, which I think you would find very interesting. And they write books for wealthy people, and then they have groups and sessions and situations where they hold seminars and about these subjects. So there's a lot of building blocks for your business here in the United States, and I think it would be very interesting to explore it.
But Rod, I wanted to ask you because obviously there's a lot of...
Sorry, if I can.
Sure,
and
of course.
I'm talking of Indians, it's actually the Indian subcontinent, because if you look at Pakistanis, if you look at Bangladesh, if you look at Nepal, look at Sri Lanka, the basic underlying culture is the same. And in America, I do not think that I mean, I could be wrong, but I do not believe that there is a platform that brings people of the Indian subcontinent culture who also are in businesses together to talk about the kind of issues that we do.
Right.
And it's a
So
large,
I totally agree. Expanding
and it's
it
a wealthy
to the
group.
subcontinent.
And it's a wealthy group.
Yeah. So we go from 1.2 billion Indians to 1.8 billion from the subcontinent. It's great. You're expanding the market by 50%.
So Rod is all about the numbers. But Rod, let me ask you a question. If coming back to the money side, do you think the family offices would be of interest seeing this, describing themselves and their business in this type of a magazine?
Oh, of course. And you know, the power of people of Indian origin in the United States is growing so rapidly. And unfortunately, I just had a billionaire Indian here. He had a son, and he just recently passed away in a Maserati accident late at night. You know, there's all these issues of transition and problems here in the United States that are same in India. And I just think that people in America don't understand the power of the Indians here and the way they're starting to dominate certain sectors of our technology space.
Okay. So obviously, guys, I think it's a fascinating show, and obviously not much but discuss. Soon, I promise you, we definitely already have conversations here in Ukraine to bring your magazine on a permanent basis here. And I know, Rod, that next week we're going to have a space show. We're going to talk about space, so it's going to be very exciting. And I know you met the guy in the airplane, as you always find these conversations during some odd periods. But before we go, I'd like to get to the last final words. Nito, your final words before we go, Rod, and then our guest.
My final words to you, Rod, is that if you find great family business and they're looking for adoption, I'm up for one.
Nice.
Hey, Rod?
I think it's a great show, and our esteemed guest, I really look forward to talking to you, because I think what you're doing, if you could you could help so many people here in the United States, not just the rich people, God bless them for where they are and what they're doing, but for the people that also can enhance their lives by relationships with these people. So if there's 20 huge trees, let us have all the acorns fall, and let so many people, let us help their dreams come true.
So, Suna, what Rod is referring to is there's a great opportunity for the magazine to become a tool to find a way to disperse the funds into much larger investment pools around than particular things. So your final word, Suna.
So I do believe that family businesses are the key drivers of the economies in whichever countries they're in. And it is in everybody's interest to keep them going generations after generations. And if we can together do even a little bit in keeping a small part of them, preventing them from falling off because they are able to address issues in their family, I think it is work good done, good work. And I do look forward to more conversations starting, because when small conversations start over a period of time, they actually have the power to become a movement. And I do want small, medium enterprises to gain their full potential. Like Rod says,
Excellent.
the big guys, God bless them, but the small and medium guys who have the potential to grow big, let us enable them to grow big.
So, Neetu, I thank you so much, everybody, and soon especially you for being a guest. Neetu, you have a safe flight. Rod, enjoy your day in Boston. I know it's early morning. So thank you very much, and whatever happens tomorrow, transformation is irreversible. Thank you very much, all. Until next time. Thank you, guys.
I need
We'll
to.
talk
Thank
soon.
you.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Henry.
Love,
Bye-bye.
yes,
Bye.
love my
Need to see you in Kiev.
Thank
Absolutely looking forward to seeing you. Thanks.
Bye-bye.